Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. Thank you for joining us this morning. The local time is The local time is 9:49 in the morning, and we will begin our program at 10 o'clock on Liberty Gold. This is lecture number 33, and lecture number 34 on Thursday is our last session. So, we're live right here with 300 people or so, and people will continue to trickle in. And we'll say hi to a few folks, and there's a couple of thank yous, and away we go. Good morning. Where are you viewing from this morning? Are we functional? Can you see and hear me? Good morning, Atlanta, Georgia, and South San Jose, California, and South Vancouver Island. 5x5, thank you for the report. Northampton, UK, New Mexico, Northern British Columbia. I missed your town, but I'll see it in the replay. Thank you, Rebecca, for doing that. Selah, Washington, Dansville, New York, Argentina, I think I saw. That's nice. I don't think I've seen Argentina much before, if I truly did read that correctly. Keighley, UK, or I know I'm supposed to pronounce it something. I forgot how to pronounce it. Liverpool, the Tanana Terrain in Alaska, Bourne, Texas, Sacramento Valley, California, Kentucky, Phoenix, Arizona. Carol says it's 5x5 in Phoenix, Illinois, or Paris, Illinois. So I'm glad that we're working okay. Linwood, Washington. We'll do a few more, and then we'll do a little bit of extracurriculars here, shall we say? Vancouver, BC. Hello. Washougal. Whyalla, South Australia. Good morning. Thank you, Lance, for saying good morning, because I'm sure it's, well, no, I guess it is, what, it's Wednesday morning there? Yeah. Happy Valley, Oregon, Ontario, Canada, Chehalis, Washington, Marysville, Washington. Oh, lots of local folks here. Alabama, Boise, Idaho, Pasco, Kansas City, Missouri, Spokane, Washington, etc. I'm in your way. I'm in the students' way. Martin's from New Zealand. Hello, Milwaukee, Oregon. Adele from Disco Park. Good morning, Adele. Nampa, Idaho. Longview, Washington. Dorset, UK. Many familiar-looking places and names, but we continue to grow, it seems. So it's always nice to say a special hello to people who are new to us and are just finding out about our little morning parties that we're having here. We're almost up to 500 now. Let me move this laptop quick, and then we'll say a couple things. We do not have a Mason sighting yet. We have 5 students, and we have 6 townies. Emily, too, is here. Hello. The sun is out. Everybody's out walking around. You're starting to see the first flowers of early spring on campus. It's very encouraging to see all of that, and I hope things are well in your world. If Mason does appear today, I will give him his delivery from Sacramento. Some thank yous. Thank you to Carl and Judy from Granger, Washington, who drove up this morning, and they brought a whole case of Cosmic Crisp apples. Is this from a local orchard, Carl? Yes. Local orchard, and it's a specialty apple that has hit the market here in the Pacific Northwest. Maybe, I don't know, have Cosmic Crisp apples gotten to your market wherever you are? If not, they'll be coming soon, I suppose. So I'll be feeding the chicken shortly. Bonnie from Bellevue drove over today to join us, and she brought some cookies and cookies for the students. And Bonnie from Bellevue, I'm reading the back of this tag, to Nick from Bonnie. It's Mount St. Helens ash. I'll add this to my collection, Bonnie. Thank you for that. Thank you for your generosity. And Glenn from Spokane is still in town, so he dropped by Vindman's this morning and got some muffins for our students. Some Raisin Bran muffins from Vindman's Bakery and some date walnut. Thank you. So thank you, Glenn, for thinking of the students. Hey, Ben, you watching again? Come on down. We got more food for you. Okay, time to go feed the chickens. Cosmic Crisp apples, cookies, and muffins for the students. Pardon? Well, I'm just going to kind of set it right here, Carl. Yeah, you want to? We'll help yourself now, you guys. I guess this morning I'll give you the option. Come now and grab them, or grab them on the way out. But please grab them. Watch your stuff now, okay? All right. Okay, Grandpa Carl's doing the delivery service back there, and we'll say hi to a few more folks. Eve almost wiped out. She's eyeballing the bakeries and locked eyes with the muffins and missed a step, but she did not fall. Everybody, Eve did not fall. We got Jack. We got Christina. We got Cade. Heard from a lot of you since yesterday's show. Not happy with my language. So you're right. I'll try harder. I guess what I want to say is I communicate with a lot of different kinds of people, different ages, different backgrounds. It's not really an excuse, I don't think. It's just I find ways to communicate with a bunch of different kinds of people, and now people around the world. So I'm mostly working with people in the room here, and there are certain techniques that seem to work. But you're right. I'll try harder. Hellos to a few more people here. Room is quiet. What? Come on now. Let's go. Bryce, how come you come? You come every morning at what time? No. It's like clockwork. It's what? 30 minutes early. And Eve shows up, she comes out of math, and you come out, you roll out of your bed in your dorm room there, and you take a little scenic route through campus, and do you take a different route each time? Okay, all right. I'm glad that you come. This is the second to last time you will be an interloper. Speaking of which, let me remind you, when Bryce becomes a loper, Bryce is taking Geology 351. And I started announcing this yesterday, but if you didn't catch the show yesterday, Eve? Oh, now we have cross-pollination. There's thanking of the students and thanking for the townies, and they're separated all the way across the room, so it's kind of entertaining to see this. Thank you for the muffin. So next time that we have this one-on-one session will be Thursday, March 11th, and that's the last session. But I announced yesterday that I will begin live streaming my next class in spring quarter at the end of the month, March 30th. And I'm still working out the details, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going Tuesdays and Thursdays live streaming at 1 o'clock for an hour, kind of like here. Same room, same everything. And there'll be some field experiences, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how or if the field stuff will be involved with you, but at least the classroom stuff will be, and it will be a junior and senior level course, but I think you might enjoy it. So that's next coming up. Okay, we got 2 minutes. I'm going to go visit with folks. Okay, thanks for joining us. All right. So are we just burnt out? Are we just kind of? Oh, what do you do without Tawny? That's a good question. What do you do without Tawny? Right. Did you know each other before this quarter? Oh, that's nice. Do you think you'll see each other after this class is done?
Probably. We're in the same math class.
Okay.
I guess I knew her last quarter, but I didn't know because I'm oblivious. So I actually met her this quarter.
All right. Oh, this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Very good. You were already a microphone last week. I'm not going to put you on the spot again, okay?
Okay.
All right, so you can relax. I'll put some. Hey, Karen, how's it going? Are you ready for this to be done? Give me an honest answer. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready for my major classes again. Yeah.
And will that happen next quarter?
Yes.
And will any of it be in person?
No, unfortunately.
Boy, why? Wow.
It's just, there wasn't any. I looked up like every possible class.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What's the major again?
Construction management.
Yeah, okay, good. All right. So they've got you all scheduled and everything for.
Yeah, it's pretty. There's so many prerequisites that they start you out freshman year taking their classes and stuff. So.
Yeah, okay. Well, good. I'm glad you're locked in there and only one more quarter to go where you kind of do this routine. But I'm glad that you were here with us in person, Christina. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's late in the quarter. I don't have to tell you that. And our final exam is this Friday. We only have one more lecture after today, but we continue with new content. The good news is we're done with the freewheeling. We're done with the experimental portion of the class. If we were feeling things were a little bit too wild the last couple of sessions, I have good news. Today is a little bit more structured, and you're going to get a special dose of energy from me because I have rewritten this lecture. So those at home that have seen me talk about the Liberty Gold, I have some new stuff tied into that will also maybe work for everyone. So I don't think we need to do any more introduction. I think we need to get right into it. And now this is dangerous. I'm stalling a little bit so that the latecomers can get this written down. I'm going to start with the laptop, and that's something I typically do not do. I typically don't go, hey, welcome everybody, let's turn out the lights and look at a bunch of photos. You know, it doesn't really work. But I'm going to try it this way because we're talking about gold. We're talking about gold. We're talking about finding gold. We're talking about a treasure hunt 20 minutes from here. There's a town called Liberty. It's Liberty Gold. There's a town called Liberty. And it's not a ghost town. There's still people living there. And yes, it was a place where there was a gold rush more than 100 years ago, but people are still finding gold. And this gentleman's name, Rob Reppin, will be shared a bunch today. And you'll see photos and video of Rob, and Rob has a bunch of stuff on the internet as well. So if you find yourself very interested in this gold business, jot down Rob's name, search for him on YouTube or Google, and you'll find a bunch more stuff. And I have found that many people have no interest in geology except this kind of thing, except this gold and looking for blue agates. That's Thursday. And they have no interest in anything else. I'm kind of the opposite, I got to say. I love the rocks. I love the tectonic stories, and we're going to be going there. I'm going to be using gold as an excuse for us to talk more about plate tectonics and volcanic rocks. But I realize I'm in the minority. I realize that most folks want where's the gold? What do I do? Where do I find it? How much money can I make? And that's the end of their discussion. Okay, so you've heard that. So without doing anything on the chalkboard yet, I think I want to go right to a little slideshow for you. And the energy's good. I don't know if it's great, but it's good. And it might be great if we can get you kind of pot committed to this gold story. So I'm going to tighten up the home audience's camera. You know, it's always a bit of a struggle to get us ready with the camera lenses. But I think this is going to be worthwhile. Good. So this is visible for both. And you're like, well, okay, well, why are we looking at this? Well, I've been trying to get you to think about the Stewart Range in Mount Stewart as recently as last time. And this is a view from our valley. And so all this Liberty gold, the town of Liberty is right down here in the foothills. And I've timed it. I've driven out there a number of times. It's a 20-minute drive from Ellensburg to Liberty. If you get to Blewett Pass, you're too far. It's between Blewett Pass and here. And geologically, it's between the Columbia River basalts of Table Mountain, just to the north of Ellensburg. It's between Table Mountain and the Stewart Range and the Baja, BC stuff that we just touched on last time. On a beautiful map like this, can we look at where this is? Sure. Well, here's Ellensburg, and here's Wenatchee, and here's Blewett Pass, and Liberty is tucked right in here. So we're going to drive up into that neck of the woods, meet Rob Reppin, and introduce you to a couple of the things that we have. You want a drone to get you up there? This is US 97, driving north. There's a beautiful barn that's a landmark for many people as they drive north. I see the townies nodding their heads right now. I should have put that on a loop. This is kind of fun. So we're heading north on US 97. We're approaching the 97-970 intersection at Lauderdale. Who cares? Okay. So it is a gold mine area. And you could get the impression, if you're in the, I don't know, some public library or something, you can get the impression that this is like yesterday's story. Like many ghost towns, the gold is gone. They came and got it all and they took off and they went someplace else. And there is an element of that story in Liberty, but that's not the only story. There is this town called Liberty. I don't know how many people live there year round, just a handful. And others have seasonal homes there. Tim, I think we got to involve you right now. So Tim, who's been with us as just kind of a guest student the whole quarter, can I relate to the home audience and the rest of the room? What's your story with your family?
We bought a property in 2008.
Tim's family from Ellensburg bought a property up there in 2008 in Liberty.
We built a cabin and we actually built an addition to it this summer.
Built a cabin and built an addition to the cabin this summer.
We also own a gold claim up there.
Oh,
Gold claim.
now how did you get your hands on a gold claim?
We had some good family friends up there.
It's all about connections. So family, friends
They lived up there full time.
live up there full time.
They had a claim right next to their property.
Okay.
We decided to go both in on it.
Okay.
That's
So,
now what my grad school project is going to be on too. That will be gold.
and so Tim is a physics major here, but was just accepted into the geology graduate program, and he's going to work with Angela Halfpenny on the gold deposits up there. So Tim is going to be the resident expert in the next couple of years if he's not already. So wonderful. Okay, so we'll have you come back, Tim. We'll have you give this talk in 2 years and talk about your thesis topic. Okay, well, let's go back in time then briefly. You can all see this, old-timey photos. And I want you first of all to notice that this guy is in a creek. This is Swauk Creek. So if I go back, you see it's the Swauk Mining District. So Swauk Creek bubbles and babbles right along US 97. And that's where we start our discussion of gold in the Liberty area. We're right next to Swauk Creek. And Liberty is on Williams Creek, just off of Swauk, but who cares? There's a bunch of streams up there is my point, creeks and streams. And most of us have experience with being in either modern creek channels or ancient creek channels. We know what river rock looks like, I think, right? Well, this guy certainly does. So this is Rob Reppin. And until about 5 years ago, I knew nothing about the gold. I knew nothing about Liberty. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know Tim. I didn't have any family friends in Liberty. And it's a closed community. I mean, like if you pull up in there in a university van, who's this guy? Not good. So I tried a few times to learn on my own, and I didn't know anybody up there. And it wasn't until Rob Reppin materialized one winter and said, I heard you're offering your class for free. Can I be he didn't say it, but he said, can I be a townie, essentially? So he took, like the townies, sat in here in this class, the full quarter, winter quarter, and as payment for learning from me, he's taught me a lot about his gold claim up there. And so I've learned directly from a gold miner after he sat in on my class. So first thing I want you to notice is that one of his mines is in a bunch of river rock. So the first thing on your outline is what? I'm going to involve you now just a touch. What's first line on your outline, please? Someone read it to me, please. Thank you. Nuggets, placer gold. So if you know about the word placer, it basically means river deposits. And in amongst the river cobbles are gold cobbles. They're literally river rocks, but they're pure gold. And so Rob has two very different kinds of gold operations, and we're starting with his placer operation. So this is all river cobbles. I'm going to give it to you verbally. There's on average 50 feet of river cobbles in that valley. 50 feet. Now, I'll tell you right up front, I still don't understand why all those cobbles are there. You're like, well, of course, it's from a river. Well, the Swauk drainage is dinky. And I'll show you in a second, the size of these cobbles are like the size of my head. And I got a big old head, man. So I don't know what river we're talking about. Nobody really knows what river we're talking about. Is it a major river that crossed the entire state of Washington? Unclear. But the reason we care about the 50 feet of river cobbles is at the very base of the 50 feet, not interspersed, but just at the very bottom 1 foot of river cobbles are the gold nuggets. They were deposited by running water, presumably like all the rest of the river cobbles, but it's right down there at the bottom that you're finding this gold. Okay, so you're like, oh, that's it? I thought I was expecting a little bigger than that. I thought you just said it was like river cobbles made out of gold. Well, there are a couple beauties that are the size of river cobbles, but most of the nuggets, again, this is the placer stuff, they're rounded. They've clearly been run by water. And that's the story. Do you know about the gold rush in California, for instance? Lots of that is placer gold coming out of the Sierras and coming down the west flanks of the Sierras, etc. So quite often you are panning. You've heard that phrase, or maybe you've even seen it in a cartoon, or panning for gold, you know. That whole concept is in the placer story. And these are photos from Rob. So this is gold he has been finding in the last 20 years from the Liberty area. And before I get you too fired up, and you've got this crazy look in your eye, and you're like, I'm going up there right after class, it's all private claims. You can't just go up there and start panning around. You're going to get shot at, man. All right. So it's a friend of a friend kind of a thing, as Tim was mentioning. And I don't know, maybe you can be real nice to Tim after class and he'll eventually get you connected. So I want you, first of all, so our theme is we're looking at the 50 feet of river cobbles, but only the very base has the pay layer, as Rob calls it, where the actual gold is being found. So his mining operation is going into so he bought a claim, Rob Reppin bought a claim 25 years ago. It had a bunch of tunnels hand dug more than 100 years ago, and he just hoped that they missed some. And he has found over the last 25 years that those miners from more than 100 years ago missed about 25% of the gold. It's not that they were terrible, they were excellent. But they're working with candlelight and they're working with hand picks, you know, and now as you'll see, he's got a bobcat, he's got metal detectors and everything else. So they're essentially reworking the placer operation that was done by hand more than 100 years ago. Plus, he's got some new techniques I want to share with you. So let's go into the placer operation. I'm sorry, let's not go in quite yet. This is across the road at a place called the Potato Patch. And this is from one of Rob's videos on YouTube. And this is Rob videotaping some of his partners at the time. and they're using a metal detector going through all the river cobbles, and they have the headphones on. You know, on a metal detector, you kind of get that, woo, 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 woo. And then if you find something that's not regular, worthless river cobble, then you do that. So there's sound if you want to go find this on Rob's YouTube channel. Oh, there we go. There we go. Yes, right. So that was the moment that they discovered, I think it's about 7 years ago now, maybe more, that they found the famous potatoes, these guys here. So incredible finds, again, missed, quote unquote, by the miners 100 years ago. And so you see that and you go, that was what, less than 10 years ago? So how many more of those things are still out there? That's what Rob and others on both sides of Blewett Pass are wondering. By the way, this is kind of story time here. Jump in with whatever you want to ask, okay? Don't be shy as usual. But this one kind of is a slow build, if there is a build at all. I'm going to involve you late today if the timing of this goes well. So don't be shy. I've since been up and I've given talks at some of their kind of miners rallies that they have at the end of summer every year. And so everybody brings their best stuff, and you know, it's under lock and key for good reason. But there's a lot to learn by visiting with all these miners. And then Rob has been very cooperative with me since I do public programs. So I try not to ask too often, but occasionally I'll say, hey, would you mind, you know, being part of a lecture I'm going to give, or can we do a field trip and would you come with us? And this was a beautiful Sunday in late September about 4 years ago. There's 140 people on this trip and about 70 cars. And so that was like the last time we ever did something like that. The goal just brings everybody out, you know, you're going to hear directly from this kind of famous miner locally. So that was a zoo. Since that time, I've had Geology 351 students go out in the spring, and we visit not only Rob outside of his mine, but he takes us in the mine. And we will be doing that again this spring with this class. So these are from past 351 trips where it is kind of unnerving. You're in tunnels, and the tunnels are made out of river rock. You know, it's river rock, but it's pretty well cemented. I trust him. He's a smart guy. And again, he's right down on the bedrock. So I can't emphasize enough, 50 feet of river rock is above us in the tunnels, but he's finding the nuggets only in the nooks and crannies on the very top of the bedrock that is beneath the tunnels. And that will play a part in what we're talking about, especially next time. So Rob Reppin, you're getting a heavy dose of him this morning. 2 weeks ago, because I'm starting to think about this spring already and what I want to do with those students, I paid a visit. It was right after that last kind of significant snow we had. And emailed him and said, hey, you know, you're up for a visit. I got Wednesdays off. Can I come up on a Wednesday morning and see what you're up to? He said, sure, come on out. So he and a hired man are out there every day throughout the whole winter. And I want you to notice the size. I don't know, did I have something for scale? These are enormous cobbles. I still don't really understand why those huge river cobbles are in that tiny little basin, but that's a story for another day if we ever figure it out. But since the last time I was out, Rob has bought the next property, the adjacent property. So he's been busy with all of his scheming with his own property, has now had plans. I got to buy the next property and I want to enlarge some of those tunnels with some of this machinery that he just purchased. So again, I want you to notice the cobbles, the river cobbles. Again, these are 2 weeks ago now. And he has taken the hand-dug tunnels and enlarged them. In a few places, he's gone right through one wall because he knows there's another tunnel right on the other side. And he's very careful about safety and making sure the whole thing doesn't cave in. But I can't emphasize enough how secure I feel when I'm out there, and maybe that would make you worry less as well. So this is his new purchase. If you're a heavy machinery person, you might know more about what we're looking at than I do. But the process is to just keep digging away, and you got to haul out all this quote unquote worthless cobble material because he's only trying to get down to that bottom foot, you know, that's on top of bedrock. So here's his partner who's waiting with the next piece of equipment to come in and just basically take the waste out and dump it out in the snow. And so he's running out of room on where to dump some of this stuff. But he's continuing to have luck. And I don't know if he'll stage something for us in the spring when we go out there, but usually he has something up his sleeve where we're kind of mining with him, essentially, which is, again, incredibly generous of him to do that. Yeah, this is, he's got one spot where he's kind of keeping as a quote-unquote museum, where he's got the bedrock exposed, very difficult to see, but you can see the actual layering in the bedrock, which we'll talk about late today. And he's even got some old candles from more than 100 years ago that are still in the wall of the hand-dug tunnel. It's pretty amazing. So they found this one as recently as last week, or I guess it's 3 weeks ago now. So they're still finding nuggets here and there. Okay, that would be enough to be interested, but we're about ready to dig into the regional geology, because there's also wire gold in the same area, but not down by the creek. So how do I want to do this? This is also on your outline then. The next line I had was something like crystalline wire gold, fragile gold, hard rock gold. So those are the two very different kinds of gold deposits that are in the Liberty area. This is also from Rob. So what he does, and I'll be coy about what we're looking at because that's coming in just a second, but this white mineral is hosting these fragile wires of gold, which are very rare. It's very rare to find these crystals of gold. He dissolves the white mineral. He frees up these fragile wires. And those wires were created 49 million years ago. So we got some work to do with the age. And somehow it has to do with this, and I'll just let you know that nearby, this is a photo we're going to focus on right now. This is a feeder dike. Now you remember with the Columbia River basalts, we had our cracks, remember our fissures, and we injected a bunch of basalt coming up into the crack. Well, we have the same thing here, and somehow that same concept of basalt feeder dikes is part of this gold story. But let's not go crazy. These feeder dikes have basalt that are 49 million years old. If you've been spacing out, it's time to come back. We need that number. And I'm coming to you before we quit. Why are we getting volcanic activity in Liberty, Washington, 49 million years ago? That is way, way, way too old for our Columbia River basalts and our German chocolate cake. That was 16, right? This is a feeder dike, this is basalt, but it's got nothing to do, it appears, with that Columbia River basalt story. So hopefully that's the hook. We're going to come back to the photos in a bit, but I don't know if that worked or not, but it maybe did. I want to go to some concepts on the chalkboard, and I also want to look very carefully at the last page. Boo-hoo, we're there. Boo-hoo. The last page of the yellow book, page 44. So let's look at it first of all, make some notes, and then try to involve you with a plate tectonic discussion. That's the goal for the next few minutes. And we'll go back to the pictures of the gold and that sort of thing, but most of it was just to kind of get you enticed and interested in this topic. Okay, first of all, this is page 44, and it is a cross-section. It is a side view of the geology between Mount Stewart and Ellensburg. Cross-section between Mount Stewart and Ellensburg. Okay? 93 million year old rock. That's the rock of Mount Stewart. What kind of rock is that? Thank you, Townies. That is granite. The granite of Mount Stewart. Can we please put an asterisk next to it, a star next to the 93, implying that that's part of our exotic terrain story? In the case of the Mount Stewart granite, this is late yesterday. It's exotic because it came from Mexico, according to some of us who embraced the Baja BC story, so it's exotic in that sense. But let's put that star to say that's too old for our gold story, and we've already discussed the 93 million year old granite. End of discussion. 150, can you change that to 160, please? Because I've learned some things since the last time I taught this. Is anybody thoroughly wide awake this morning? What's significant about the number 160 from yesterday? Age of what? It's late in the quarter, but I'm going to wait for this one now. And we're not going to have the townies bail us out. Eve. Thank you, Eve. Beautifully done. From yesterday, the Ingalls ophiolite was 160 million years old. If you remember yesterday, there was another ophiolite in southern Oregon called the Josephine, which I presented as the same stuff. We don't care really today. We just focus on the fact that here we go. In this cross-section, near the Liberty Gold story, is our 160 million year old Ingalls ophiolite. Who remembers the story? Let's put a star behind that one, in other words, as well. So where did that ophiolite material come from? Or what did the rock look like? Or what are some rock names associated with ophiolite? Go. Come on, baby. Come on, baby. Say, serpentinite, like this green stuff here. Where did the serpentinite of the Ingalls ophiolite originally get created? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Sweating to the oldies. Let's go. Let's do it again. What is the answer to this question, students? Where do you create an ophiolite in the world? Thank you. The ocean floor. So these green rocks from the ocean floor are now above sea level. They were minding their own business until we had some interaction between the Mount Stewart granite, 93 million years old, which invaded or ate into this 160 million year old green rock. And if you want me to say it, I'll say it. The Mount Stewart granite ate into the ocean floor ophiolite when they were down in frickin' Mexico. I said frickin'. And then between 85 and 55 million years ago, this stuff came up here. That's beside the point today, but I'm trying to have you connect mentally, even though it's a struggle this late in the quarter. We still don't have Mason. They're dropping like flies this week, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? You guys are here, though, but we're not engaged quite yet. I'm going to try one more time before we quit with one major discussion topic, and I'm hopeful that we'll have a robust conversation then. Okay, I think what we need to do is rotate this picture mentally. And I'm going to do this on the chalkboard now. I'm going to take page 44 and I'm going to get it back to its original horizontal position. I'm going to try to make these layers nice and flat. So you know that this is how these layers look today, and I've started with the two oldest exotic terrain guys, but I want to pick up the page, do something quickly on the board, means the same thing, and then we'll see if we can't get a discussion going. Ready? Here we go. So down below, here's our 93 million year old granite of Mount Stewart area invading into the 160 million year old serpentinite story. And by 60 million years ago, that stuff is here in central Washington. Okay? That whole exotic stuff, that's in the past now. Now we are truly local. And for the first time, we're going to create some local rocks. Local meaning they weren't made in another state and moved here. This is central Washington stuff. What's the age range that you have for our next layer, please, in numbers? Someone please speak for the love of God. Thank you. Appreciate it. 59 to 49 million years ago, a 10 million year window where we deposit sandstones and shales. Sandstones and shales. Part of a geologic formation called the Swauk Formation. Now, the word formation in geology is different than the word formation with regular people walking down the street. Like, hey, haven't seen you in a while. How's it going? Oh, yeah, we do. We were just down in southern Utah on a family trip. Oh, the geological formations are just amazing. They do this with their hands, like the formations, like the spires and the ribs and the canyons. And well, that's not formation for us. Formation for us is a capital F, and the SWOC formation is a collection of rocks that tell a specific story. That's very different than shapes of how things eroded, okay? So when I say formation today, like the SWOC formation, or the Teanaway formation, or the Roslyn formation, that's coming, I'm talking about more than one kind of rock grouped together that tell a specific story. And in the case of the SWOC formation, capital F, those sandstones and shales deposited between 59 and 49 million years ago tell a very specific story. And here's the story. Central Washington during this time was like Florida today. Has anybody been to Florida? You have, good. It's flat, it's hot, it's humid, and it's swampy. The plants there tell us that it's hot and humid and flat. And yes, we have beautiful fossils of plants. I'll show you photos in a second. You walk to the lab room every day. Have you ever looked in those cabinets? There's a bunch of beautiful palm leaves, fossilized palm tree leaves that were collected from the SWOC shales just north of Ellensburg, Washington. So you were going way back to the beginning of the class where I say I love to tell stories. I love geology because of the storytelling. And how can I tell the stories? I have to fit my stories to the data, and the data are usually coming from the rock layers themselves. This is a pretty good story. Now let's just pause and think about this a little bit more. It was flat. You're like I said, I thought you said this is Mount Stewart granite. Well, it is Mount Stewart granite, but Mount Stewart isn't here yet. The Mount Stewart isn't here yet. When did the Cascade Range begin? What number? 40. So this is before there's a Snoqualmie Pass. This is before there's a Mount Rain. This is before all the mountains. I really do mean it. I really do mean it. It was flat. It was Central Florida here. It was the Everglades here. The plant fossils tell us that. The sandstones and the shales tell us that. Shale is mud, if you recall, mudstone. And the sandstone is obviously just a bunch of sand coming in with maybe some sluggish rivers. So again, we're going back to the visuals in a second, but this is important because 49 million years ago is the magic number. Not only today, but on Thursday. 49 million years ago, something's going to happen in the middle of this SWOC swamp. Ooh, I've never said it like that before. That's an alliteration. That's nice. Gee willikers, I like that phrase. I'm going to go down to the Sody Pop fountain and hold hands with my special girl. Gosh whiz, gee whiz. I'm practicing. Okay? What's going to happen 49 million years ago? Anybody? Who's ahead of me? What's going to happen in the middle of this SWOC swamp 49 million years ago? Oh, Casey. Oh, Casey. Casey just said the culmination that was supposed to happen 15 minutes from now, but that's how much he's into the class. He's got it. I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. You're totally right. Oh, why not? I was just looking for you looking at page 44 and seeing the fissures and the feeder dike coming right up through the middle of the swamp. But I'll tell you what Casey said in just a second. So Casey's 5, maybe 6 steps ahead of me. Good job. Casey, are you going to take more geology? There's only one answer to it. What's that?
I plan to.
You plan to? Oh. Really? Next quarter?
How about that?
I pushed too hard. I pushed too hard. I got to play it cool, boy. Don't be desperate. Just play it cool. Just play it cool. Just play it cool. Just kind of be hard to get. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Maybe I'll see you sometime. Okay, good. Nice. This is the main event. So I'll share with you what Casey said if you didn't hear it. Casey's thinking Silesia. Casey's thinking what's happening regionally at this time. And we know what's happening at this time regionally. The oceanic plateau called Silesia docks, accretes between 51 and 49 million years ago. And here we go in central Washington with these crazy cracks, fissures, forming in the middle of the Swamp. And just like a good feeder dike story, what's going to come out of the cracks? Mafic magma, the basalt of the Teanaway Formation. Let me do it. Basalt, flood, basalt, flood, basalt, flood. A bunch of these fissures. I mean, it's a flood basalt story. We've already talked about a flood basalt story. Please don't get mixed up. Please don't think I'm talking about the Columbia River basalts of eastern Washington. I know it's the same story, but the time is wrong, right? This is happening in an instant, apparently, 49 million years ago. So I'm using yellow, and I'm completely flooding this central Washington swamp, this swamp with basalt lava 49 million years ago. And I hope now you can see on page 44, if we rotate the layers back to their original horizontal position, there's the swamp, and here are these fissures, what I just drew in yellow on the board, and this is the Teanaway basalt. Did I write the word Teanaway in your outline? Even if I did, let me do it again. This is the Teanaway basalt. Okay, let's pause for just a second. We're getting there. The energy's good now. I can feel it. Let's pause. Thought we were talking about gold. What are we doing? You're doing your same old story time with rocks and everything. I thought we were talking about gold. We are. Well, how does this is you talking. How does the placer gold fit into this? I don't know. I think those rivers were pretty young, but I can't prove it. Rob and many others think they're Ice Age rivers, like less than 3 million years old, but there's nothing really to say. So this is the new way of teaching this Liberty Gold stuff. I'm just going to say, we got all these nuggets, 50 feet of river rock, beats me, moving on. And I'm hoping to, pursue that down the road, because nobody's really studied that very carefully, as far as I can tell. So I don't want you to get confused. We're leaving the gold nuggets. We're leaving the river rocks. We're leaving all that stuff. But we are now focusing on, do you remember the other gold? The wire gold, these teeny tiny fragile wires of crystalline wire gold up in the hard rock. And that is the play here now. I'm about to tell you the secret recipe for finding wire gold. First of all, you need a family friend. Right? You got to get a mining claim. Is it a hard rock mine you guys got? Oh, it is. You have placer also, or just hard rock, you think?
No, we just have
So Tim's family, with this new claim that they managed to acquire through a family friend, is a hard rock. And so what we're about to talk about is the recipe for Tim's family's claim. And again, Rob has placer operations we just looked at, but he's also got hard rock claims in some hand-dug tunnels up high above Liberty. So there's potential for confusion here, but I think we're mostly on the same page. You ready? Here's the recipe. And there are questions, but here's the recipe. Rob is finding should I include it? No. Let me just do this. I want to move on, so I'm not going to give you the full story, but I want to emphasize one part of it. Oh, God, and I'm doing circles that looks like nuggets. Bad, 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 bad. Okay. Try it this way. The Squawk Formation is interbedded sandstones and shales, correct? Let me make some lines. Oh, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Thank you for your patience. There are some folds. There are some anticlines and synclines within the Squawk Formation. So the plot thickens. We have our swamp. We make our flat layers of sandstone and shale. That's fine. But we're going to do some folding of those flat layers of sandstone and shale. We're going to fold or crustally deform the layers of sandstone and shale, and all I'm doing is highlighting a couple of shale layers. Take good notes, please. Do your best to keep up with my kind of stopping and starting here. I'm trying my best to work out some new stuff. So, Squawk Formation between 59 and 49 million years ago. Alternating layers of sandstone, shale, sandstone, shale, sandstone, shale. The layers are not flat anymore. They have been folded because of crustal compression. Like we know, folds tell us about a crustal compression story. And now, here's what I want to say. I'm going to put, let's get some red chalk. I'm going to make some red X's. And the red X's are only going to be placed, this will work. The red X's are only placed, first of all, the red X's are where we're finding the wire gold. We're in the hard rock gold mines of Tim's family, of Rob's, and a bunch of other families. We're up high in the hills above the town of Liberty. But I'm now showing you what Rob has told me, and a few other miners I've met in the last 10 years, and they confirm that this is kind of their story too. That they're not finding the wire gold everywhere. They're finding the wire gold always right next to one of these basalt feeder dikes, 49 million years old. It's got to be the black shale of the Squawk Formation, and it has to be an anticline. I'm going to say that two more times. Here's the setting that you need to find fragile, I might add, valuable, fragile wire gold in the Liberty area at least. You need three things. You need to be next door to a feeder dike. Like they're never finding, you're not seeing a red X out in the middle of nowhere here. They're always right next to one of these feeder dikes, so there has to be a relationship somehow to the feeder dike. They're only finding the wire gold in the shale. So if you're at a place where some of that beautiful sandstone is next to one of the feeder dikes, no luck. Apparently, we'll see what your research says, Tim. And then there's places where we have, remember, an anticline is the layers arching up, and a syncline are the layers arching, warping down. They're not according to Rob. This never been studied academically. Most of it's because it's all private land. It's all locked up. I got my secrets. I'm not going to tell anybody else. That's why Rob is kind of a different cat. Like he's sharing with me and therefore to the public about what the story is. You can imagine how you'd want to keep that to yourself. Like I got my mind. I don't want to tell all my secrets. But he has. So the anticline is part of the story, not the syncline. Let me finish my train of thought and we'll finish I'm not sure how we'll finish, but let me finish. Let me go with my next train of thought. The wire gold is in the black shale, but there's a mineral called calcite. And that was the name of the white mineral that you saw in the photograph. So calcite hosts the wire gold. I'll go back to those photos right now. But instead of having the wire gold be in the black shale, like I kind of gave you the impression, like you got to be in the black shale is what I said. But when you really drill down and you get really close to the feeder dike, the wire gold is not in the black shale. It's in this very soft mineral called calcite. You didn't see calcite across the way. But calcite is a mineral that's forming in the cracks. So you basically crack the black shale, you form this calcite, and that's where the wire gold likes to grow. I think you see it. And even if you don't, I want to use the last few minutes to give you visuals related to that. And then I guess our Siletzia discussion that Casey brilliantly got us rolling on, I think we'll maybe start that tomorrow. There is next time. There is a tie to the blue agates and Siletzia as well. Okay. So this, let me go back. All right. Can I go back? Am I going back? No, I'm not. All right, let me go back. Okay, so placer, we're done with that. You're not going to see any more pictures of nuggets. Wire gold, this is what we were just talking about. And the white mineral you're looking at right now is a vein of calcite. And what Rob does, and he hasn't had much luck recently, by the way. He's almost 100% placer now. He's like, I'm not having good luck in that hard rock mine. So he's down placer almost year round now. But in the days when he was finding calcite veins in the black shale next to a feeder dike, he would take the calcite, as I mentioned briefly, dissolve using acid, dissolve the calcite away, free up those wire gold samples, and most of his money is coming from selling to collectors online, apparently, the fragile wire gold, for jewelry, I assume. I really don't know, actually. The Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. has some wire gold from Kittitas County, Liberty, Washington. It's a big deal. Now, this is what one of those feeder dikes looks like. This is on the old Blewett Highway. You can get to it right now. It's an old road. Drive right to it. And you're like, oh my God, really? That's a feeder dike? Well, let's go look for some wire gold. Well, remember, we gotta have some black shale, and we don't right here. And we need an anticline of the black shale, and we don't right here. We need that special recipe. But that special recipe does exist at some of the mines that Rob purchased above Liberty. So here he is after the class he took with us a few years ago, and the snow went away, and he's like, yeah, I'll show you hard rock. Come on in. So this is a tunnel, hand dug, but we're not down by the creek now, right? We're up high. We're in the hard rock. And what you're looking at here is a bunch of black shale, and we're right next door to one of the feeder dikes, and he has problems, as I guess many do, with vandals and people trying to get into his property, whatever. I don't know much about that. But here we go. He and I going into a hard rock mine. I mean, we're less than 5 miles from his placer stuff, by the way. That's another thing I don't totally understand. Like, why do we have this wire stuff so close to these huge nuggets? But let's not get distracted. Before we quit, I want to make sure you have time to see this. So we're in black shale, and we're right next to a feeder dike. And it's dark. He's got power running in his placer tunnels. He doesn't have power up there. So it's pretty dark, and he's got a flashlight to help me see. And there's these old timbers holding things in place, even though it's bedrock now. We don't have the river rock stuff anymore. And you can look carefully in the shale and see it's fractured. There's a lot of cracks in the black shale, and many of those cracks are filled with this white calcite. Now, I don't know the mineralogy of that setting very well. I don't really totally understand why calcite is so prominent there. I think there are some quartz veins as well. And I think I have had some miners tell me, yeah, my wire gold's coming out of quartz. It's not coming out of calcite. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I don't know what to do with that. So that's where a thesis like Tim is going to come in. But here's just an example of how the black shale has so many fractures running through it that are filled with these white-colored minerals. And again, it's looking for this. A couple final photos just to show you how tiny some of these crystals are. All these vials of this very fragile wire gold that's been dissolved out of mineral host. And the plot thickens again for me. I try not to get too hung up on it, but many of these guys are saying, oh yeah, it's simple, you just weather, some of those wires. So in other words, they say, look, it's simple. The nuggets are just a bunch of fragile wires from up in the hills that have been like moved by the river and packed into the nuggets. And I'm like, that's a 2-mile trip. I don't understand. Well, there's a lot of energy with the water and it's packing. They keep packing these wires to make these solid nuggets in like a 2-mile trip. It doesn't make any sense to me. And then they go, well, how about this? So they know that was my take on it. So then you go to another miners rally and they're like, hey, get over here. Get a college boy. Come over here. Look at this. So they're showing me nuggets that are like partially made out of wires. So they're like, here's the intermediate step. I'm like, I guess, but I still don't get how this works in such a small area, but maybe that's just my limitation. I don't know. So there's potentially a connection between the wire of liberty and the nuggets of liberty and transitioning from the wire to the nuggets, but I still don't know if I really understand it. I'm out of time. What we will do on Thursday, the next time that I see you, is come right back to those feeder dikes and the Teanaway Formation, but realize that there's more to the Teanaway Formation than basalt. There's rhyolite there also. This is a bimodal volcanism story. Ding, 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 buzzwords, flash bulbs. Casey's about to foam at the mouth right now. What? No, that's not right. But there's an exciting regional story that we potentially can tell using the rhyolite and the basalt of the Teanaway Formation, and it will involve the accretion of siletzia. Don't miss the thrilling conclusion to Geology 101, Thursday at 10 o'clock. Thank you, I love you, and goodbye. We got a full case of Cosmic Crisp. There's more than one for each student, so please take more than one apple. They're beautiful apples. Muffins from Glenn, cookies from Bonnie. I'm serious. Dig in. I don't want to eat them. I'll eat the apples, but I'm eating too much of this other stuff. Thank you. I'm going to go visit with the students. We'll do some live Q&A in just a second. Thank you for sticking around. Bryce, come on. You got big pockets there. Fill those pockets up. Carl, thank you. Carl and Judy, thank you. Oh, look at all these muffins. There's more muffins here. Attaboy, Aiden. Nicely done. Okay, Emily, are you heading right back home?
Yeah, probably.
Is that your routine? You kind of just bust down here and bust right back?
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah.
Unless I get distracted.
Well, why else would you stick around? There's not a whole lot going on, right?
And there's more going on in this town than there is Cleveland.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. All right, Casey. You bet, man. Keep it going. I can feel the vibrations coming off of you, Casey. You keep it going now.
How you going, buddy? We got grandkids party.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
49 million years ago.
Yeah.
We're like 46 degrees north now.
Yes.
Plate tectonics, where were we 49 when we were a swamp?
We were further north, if you can believe it. So I don't know if you drove up for that plant fossils lecture I gave a couple years ago down at Morgan Auditorium, but that was one of the big points is that those palm fronds that I was talking about in that lecture, I kind of asked that question, like, were we close to the equator at the time? And then I'm like, no, we know exactly where North America was, and it was even further north than it is now. And so it was that PETM, that big thermal maximum globally at that time. Yeah, wow. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming up. Yeah, absolutely. You want to use the bag? Yeah. Fill it with a few more things. I'm not kidding. Okay, well, thanks for sticking around. Let's do some live Q&A. Uppercase if you're new to us, and we'll try to answer a few things here.
Lynn, I'm gonna fish that river and
I'm sure you must have questions.
but also, when I do get ready to go.
Deathmaw, was Johnny Horton right? Where the river is winding, big nuggets they're finding. Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for coming. The plaster thing confuses me. Thanks, Tim. Rob is digging with his bulldozer or whatever that cat thing is, his heavy machinery. He is going into certain walls of those hand-dug tunnels, placer I'm talking about now, where he thinks he can see a bend in the river. Whatever the age of that river is, he seems to have old flow indicators of that water. So he is picturing stuff being dropped kind of on the inside of a curve or the outside of a curve. I'm not really sure. But we've had many discussions, mostly out there, where I'm just going, I don't get this river. I don't get where this water's coming from, and therefore I don't get where this gold is coming from. And he says, it's coming from 2 miles. It's coming from another place. And just the size of those clasts just don't work for my head. But I'm coming back to thinking about that a little bit. So we'll see where this continues. Thank you. Can't pronounce your name. Ever considered staking a claim with your class? No, that's not a world I belong in for many reasons. Questions about the geology, please. Kyle, uppercase, page 44 question. Has the bedrock uplifted mostly in the last 10 million years? That's a great question. That's about as it's an important question. I don't know if we totally understand. Kyle's wondering, like, when did we go from this to this? And one way to answer it is that you know that our Columbia River basalts, these are Grand Ronde flows coming right into the picture at Table Mountain. We know those were flat. We assume those were flat as recently as 16 million years. And so if we use the Columbia River basalt 16 million years as our kind of paleo-horizontal reference point, then we can say that the folding has to be younger than 16. And I guess that's the story, but there's other things between Ellensburg and Wenatchee that say that there was probably some kind of a high point during or before the Columbia River basalt. And I'm pretty sketchy on that, and that's why I'm if you're interested in joining us in 351, the whole class will be devoted to this area between Ellensburg and Wenatchee. And I'm mostly going to be focusing on the Teanaway Formation and somehow plugging the Teanaway Formation and what we know so far about the Teanaway Formation into the tectonics of the area, which again gets us between 60 and 40 million years. It's an exciting time. And I haven't been thinking much about that time frame for a year. but I'm ready to come back and think. So thanks for the question. I'm going to be asking a lot of those kinds of questions. And of course, your questions always help and steer me, or they often help steer me. David, is it correct to say that the folding of the Squawk Formation was due to Siletsia accretion? You gave it away, man. Yeah, that's next time. We're going to talk about not only the fissures, but the folding as a direct result of Siletsia. So now I guess you don't have to tune in on Thursday. I'm going to try to get the students to make that discovery themselves. We'll see how it goes. Frank, was the gold suspended? Otherwise, what are the mechanisms of getting wires? Gold suspended. Are you kind of asking why are the wires floating in the calcite? And if you are, I don't know the answer. I think that's what you're asking. There's so much about the crystals of gold that I don't understand, and I need to get into a mineralogy class. And Tim was sitting in on the mineralogy class this winter, I think in preparation for doing his master's work with Angela upstairs. But I'm very weak on crystal chemistry and that sort of thing, so I don't know how to answer your question. It's a good thought, though. I never thought about visualizing why the wires are kind of looks like they're growing. Well, I don't know. I don't have that picture handy. What's the stem of the wire? Is the stem coming from the shale outdoors, or is it truly floating inside of the calcite? I don't know. Sid also wants to ask about the wire. Timing of wire gold. Anticline first, then igneous feeder intrusion. Yeah, as you'll hear tomorrow, there have been precious few dates on the Teanaway Formation, but that's changing. Partly because I'm interested in the Teanaway Formation. And so if you don't hear it on Thursday, you'll hear it this spring, that I've recruited a few of my buddies to come and take samples and run some samples from the Teanaway and some of the deposits or the igneous rocks over by Wenatchee that also has a lot of gold. And so the dates are starting to come through, but we don't have enough dates to answer your question, I don't think. Cindy, weird rhyolite called lionite or yinite near the gold in Texas Hill Country. Thank you. Sherry, is there a geologic process that would either inhabit the stabilization of host rock or cause its alteration that would allow the gold to be weathered out in that short a distance? Good question, Sherry. I don't know. It's just I think I'm hung up on it irrationally, because I keep coming back to the fact we don't have gold everywhere. And a lot of the gold in the West, no, a lot of gold in the Pacific Northwest is tied to this time, called the Chalice magmas, between 50 and 30 million years ago. But boy, pretty quickly you get into a need for geochemistry or learning weathering processes, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that even in one class next quarter. I might have to really, I don't know. It's going to be heavy lifting for me if we get down to that amount of detail. I might have to use Chris Mattinson again from upstairs, who was the guy who talked about green rocks from my backyard. Haley, maybe a dumb question. Hey, now, come on now. But could a comet or asteroid bring the gold to Earth all those millions of years ago? I don't think that's a dumb question. It's very difficult to ultimately answer basic questions about precious metals. Why are they here? Why are they in certain places? And economic geology is incredibly foreign to me. The only economic geology class I took was in grad school, and I slept through most of it, mostly because you need the chemistry and the physics background, and I lose interest when we get down to that scale. So that's not a dumb question, but I don't know how you proceed. Somebody saying hello, Rob Reppin. Was Rob with us today? Rob, are you here? Hope I didn't embarrass you too much. Oh, you are here. Hey, good. Hi, Rob. How much does a gold nugget weigh? Inside joke. Hey, Rob, you can be the Jerome Lessman of today. Have you been answering other people's questions? I hope so, because we can turn to you. let's go another few minutes since Rob is with us. Rob, if you're feeling up for it, you took a break from your machine to join us. Answer a few of these questions, would you mind? And maybe some of these questions will be interesting to you. This is a smart group. All right, let's do a few that I can try to answer, and maybe Rob can answer a few as well. I'm probably asking too much of Rob now. Kent, glacier action, milling the wires into nuggets. Well, nearby, thank you, Kent. Nearby to Liberty is a place where a big glacier sat. It's called Swak Prairie. There's some moraine material there, and there's outwashes, going back to the Ice Age talks, but there's glacial outwash. There's water coming off of the melting glacier. And the only real geologist in the last 60 years who's made maps of that area, Richard Waite, who's more famous for his work with the Ice Age floods. But Richard Waite was in there in the mid-1970s, and he mapped the area between Liberty and Lauderdale Junction, or Verdon it's called, as glacial outwash. And he thought a bunch of those cobbles that I was talking about today were rivers coming off of a glacier that came down from the Cascades, from Snoqualmie Pass, the Yakima Valley Glacier that we were talking about 2 months ago. Well, I don't think Rob's into that, and that's another unfinished piece of business. Like, if you're really serious about trying to decide where those river cobbles are coming from, you get in there and start getting statistics on the 50 feet of river cobbles. I mean, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of these cobbles that are huge. Like, you'd work with the lithology of those cobbles and try to make a case for what the source or where the source of those river cobbles are. Is it really the Cascades? If it is, then did the placer gold come from the Cascades? If it's not, was there a big river before the Columbia River basalts that was flowing from some other gold-rich area, and it's far-traveled gold? But then the gold is so big. Why would it travel so far? The cobbles are so big. Why would they travel half a state? You can see there's a lot of academic puzzles in this area that's so close to campus. And the main reason, as Rob reminds me, the main reason Rob came down and started dealing with us is he wanted some academic people from our department to go out there and do research. Well, it's finally happening with Tim. I don't know how much Tim is going to deal with Rob. Rob, have you met Tim? Congrats to Tim. I shouldn't give his last name, but anyway. But Rob knows there's a lot of interesting topics up there. We haven't had anybody from the department take the bait yet, for whatever reason. Good. People are talking to Rob. I don't know if Rob's answering, but I'll just scroll back a little bit. Oh, this is fun. Oscar from San Diego. Why does the gold form in anticlines but not synclines? Well, I'm a broken record now, but I think the general idea is if you form anticlines, it's a question of where hydrothermal fluids are most likely to penetrate. I don't know much about economic geology, but I do know that you typically need hot fluids, hydrothermal fluids that are rich in gold and silver and other goodies. And quite often you get these hydrothermal solutions along the margin of, let's say, a major magma chamber. Well, we don't have a major magma chamber in the area that was hot and producing hydrothermal fluids 49 million years ago, like the Mount Stewart granite's way too old, right? But this Teanaway volcano, which again, bimodal, which is not the way I used to present it, but I've made progress in the last year about that. So we're making rhyolites and basalts, and there is a heat source, and there are hot fluids. And so I think the general thought is that the hydrothermal fluids are not only going to come up along the margin of a feeder dike. Ben, go ahead, man, help yourself. But why does it have to be an anticline? Maybe we have some experts here. I don't know about traps of anticlines being more successful than traps of synclines. Halfway through that answer, Oscar, I realized I didn't know what I was talking about. All right, Ben. Did you just take one?
What's that?
You took 3. 2 muffins and an apple. That's perfect. Great. You deserve it. There's a bunch more. Send some other folks down if you see anybody. Yeah. I'll just keep the doors open here for a while. I'm coming down to live. We'll do a few more. I might just read. I'll be interested to see if Rob is answering questions. I'm curious to see what he's got to say. He might be back to working, though. Don, does the gold bond with the shale and or the calcite or just to the calcite? I'm parroting what Rob has told me, but there's a lot of carbon in the shale, and gold loves the carbonaceous nature of the shale. So I think the element carbon is needed for some of this gold. So I think the answer is if we didn't have that carbon-rich shale, we wouldn't have the gold, as I understand it. But is there carbon in calcite? Oh my God. What's the chemical formula of calcite? This is embarrassing. Moving on. Moto mining. Are there other areas with this kind of geology, or is it specific to Liberty? We'll finish with that one because that has really, that's what got me fired up, Moto. I think of all the stuff that I do, I think the common thread of things that get me interested is something local, quote unquote, that's not just a local thing, but you can plug it directly into a very regional set of ideas. I think that's always what works the best with the general audience and what just works best for my brain. And it does feel like most research is very local and very precise and very kind of myopic in many ways. And oftentimes it feels like it's rare for people to then kind of plug something, their local research, into something regional. I love the regional story. So the answer is yes. If you Google Chalice magmas, there's a town in Idaho called Chalice, Challis, Chalice, Idaho. And if you cross into BC, it's the Kamloops or the Kamloops magmas. Same stuff. So this is a regional story from the Dakotas all the way out here, where all these really weird magmas are coming up at selected spots. Not a volcanic arc, in other words, kind of this kind of absolutely berserk regional story. And last winter, a year ago winter, more than 12 months ago, I was ready to give a lecture on these Chalice magmas because I was like, oh my God, there's gold associated with every one of these things. Idaho, Montana, British Columbia, Washington. And so this is not just a Liberty story, and it's always bothered me. What's going on in Liberty? How does this fit into the regional story? And I think I know how to plug it into something more regional. And I don't feel like people have done much with the Chalice magmas, just generally. So if you do Google Chalice magmas, I don't know if you'll find a whole lot. So my humble goal in the next year, I guess, is to do a lot with this Chalice magmas chapter and consolidate a bunch of individual work and try to make it work with a regional story. A toast to you. Thank you for joining us and continuing to show your love of learning new things. Thanks to Rob Reppin for joining us today. That was unexpected, a nice surprise. And thank you to all of you for consistently being part of this community. Zach, there's food. Grad students are milling outside. They've heard the rumor about fresh food in a classroom. They're descending like vultures. Here's to them, and here's to you for your generosity. And finally, here's to your health as we continue to do our best to emerge from the holding pattern that almost all of us around the world have dealt with for coming up on a year now. Here's to us. That'll do it for today. I will not see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday, but I will see you Thursday for a discussion of the Teanaway Formation and Ellensburg blue agates that are also somehow related to this Teanaway volcanism story. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. I love you. And goodbye from Ellensburg, Washington, USA. I can't hold it. I got to tell you, Glenn is still in the room. It's totally silent in here, but Glenn from Spokane is still here. Looks like he's all packed up, but I think he wants to visit a little more. All right. Oh, he's going to Frenchman Coulee on your way home?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Goodbye.